All right, good morning, everyone. Who here was out late last night watching the Cubs? Hi. We're all doing great this morning, I assume. Hello. Okay, well, we're going to ease you into your day with some nice, light, super fun Snapchat talk. By show of hands, who here currently uses Snapchat or Instagram stories? All right, awesome. Okay, we hope you still get some fun ideas out of this. We're going to be talking a little bit about some of the best practices for using Snapchat and Instagram stories for storytelling, which we are collectively calling them ephemeral content since they do disappear after 24 hours. And that way we don't have to keep saying Snapchat and Instagram stories. Okay, so we are going to get started. Maybe. Oh, gotta go into slideshow. Okay, so to do some introductions, this is Andrew Mandinach, and he is with the Balboa Park Online Collective. And we've put our Twitter handles on here, which might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but since we're all presenting from different perspectives and different organizational affiliations at different times, we decided to just kind of point you to our personal Twitters, and you can find our other contact information there. And then we have Ryan Dodge, who is Digital Engagement Coordinator at the Royal Ontario Museum. So this is an international panel, so just real excited about that. And then I'm Shaelyn Amaio, and I'm a producer of public programs and community engagement at the New York Transit Museum. So what are we doing here? We are talking about ephemeral content. If you were not expecting to talk about ephemeral content this morning, then I will not be offended if you get up and leave right now. We will be discussing the best practices for Snapchat and Instagram stories, talking about storytelling, analytics, ephemerality, and what that all means for producing content on these platforms. We're going to be showing some examples of fun Snapchat and Instagram stories, and we're going to be getting hands-on with a tutorial. So if you do not currently have one of these apps on your device and you would like to take a moment to download that, that would be awesome. Okay, so when we talk about ephemeral content, we're starting real basic here. We're really talking about social media platforms and tools where content disappears after a set period of time. So this type of sharing encourages a less formal or filtered view of the user's day than other more permanent outlets. And this is something that we'll talk a little bit more as we go along about, but so everyone knows kind of the cliche about like the perfectly filtered Instagram life of our social media accounts. And these more ephemeral, less formal formats allow for you to be less filtered, to not necessarily show everything perfectly, things like that. And really the interesting thing is that we all know the internet is forever, except when it's not, and this is one of those times. So then we start getting into the why. So like I said, it's less formal. It gives you opportunities to be a little bit more fun and lighthearted. It's a really great chance to offer behind-the-scenes glimpses and to include things that might not fit into the rest of your social media strategy. So here we actually have a couple of snaps just to kind of get us started. We have from Ryan, we've got a classic emoji paste job on a statue.
Classic Aphrodite. That's Aphrodite. Greek and Roman department was really mad when they found out about this.
And then we have a couple from Drew, kind of introducing folks to San Diego, to Balboa Park. And Drew will talk a little bit more about his perspective. We all have sort of different perspectives. So for instance, I actually don't snap for an institution right now. I only snap as myself. Whereas Ryan is snapping for a single institution with the Royal Ontario Museum. And Drew has kind of a little bit different perspective since he's working with the Balboa Park Collective, online collective. So he's actually looking at multiple institutions at once from this one institutional voice. It's pretty low investment to make a snap. Takes a couple minutes, maybe even a couple seconds, depending on the level of what you're doing. And it allows you to respond quickly. So Drew, do you want to talk a little bit about this moment that's up here?
Yeah. So I am going to continue to live snap this. Balboa Park and I have a very intimate relationship. We were on first name basis. So basically, what I kind of getting to that point, how we ended up here, how we ended up with this in my hand as well, talking to you guys about this was Snapchat came out. We ended up investing in that and realizing that it was something that I was going to be able to do, and really, I decided it was going to be behind the scenes. I do video production in Balboa Park as well, so I'm constantly on my feet. I'm constantly in the park, and I already do Instagram, so it's already something that I'm in the park and in museums already taking pictures. So I figured I'd just continue and have more of a behind the scenes. That was the initial platform, our initial idea for how we were going to get there, and it really actually I just took a lot of notes from people that inspired me, AKA Ryan. So I'm super excited that we're presenting together.
I don't know what I'm doing, Drew, so maybe that's not a good thing.
Things that I took away from that was following people who follow you. I don't know if it was you or Lexi who told me that, but
Yeah.
right away, anyone who follows us, we follow them right back, which starts that conversation, right? They know they can talk to us. Balboa Park is very beloved. I'm not from there, but in posting on Instagram, realizing that what is now a Navy hospital, or what is now an administration building, was once a Navy hospital that a lot of people were born in or were married in, and this and that. People want to talk about that, so this naturally continued to keep that conversation going. It's morphed naturally. We started in February. A few weeks ago, there was the tragic incident of Alfred Alongo being shot in San Diego, and it was the first time we've done a few moments, in our social media of we're gonna not post, or we're gonna take a moment of silence or reflect on tragedy in the world around us. But this was the first time that we specifically reflected on San Diego community, and so really. It was honestly, at this point when we got here, this was again a few weeks ago, having done this since February, it was just something that I wanted to reflect on, and at this point I had done Museum Selfie Day on Snapchat, so people knew me, it's by no means, I'm not a face that it's not always face forward, but it was something that I just, as you can see, I switched to, I want to take this time to reflect, and people were okay with that, right? It was that we're doing this together. Yes, there is inherently a statement, but it wasn't about, one way or another. There was, a lot of folks that in the park were concerned about, well, what about the city, or what about other things that we represent? And this was just simply being real with the audience at a point in which I had already been real, right? We're talking to them. So not only do I follow them, if they have questions, will respond. If they have just, what are you doing right now? People, sometimes it's more formal, sometimes it's not. And that's really what this led to, was this kind of discussion of something that was real and that we're not doing in a formalized, we ended up doing the same thing on Instagram and Facebook, but essentially it started as my test platform, if you will, on Snapchat. It's this conversational piece saying, we'll respond to comments, but that's it. So you guys know. So again, it's all communicative. That's really where I'm going with Snapchat, in a way that's happening with Instagram stories. And I think we can kind of come back to that a little bit with how people communicate here. People see more on Instagram stories, but they don't respond as much. Like when they see this stuff, or anything really, it doesn't have to be the heavy stuff. People just want to communicate and say that's cool, or thank you, or I've done a few tours that have looked at race, or it's talked about the opening, I don't know, what are we in, baseball is the opening day, that's the term you guys call it. I don't do sports, so yeah. On opening day, it was just a lot of going around to the different museums and looking at their collections and sports related themes, and it was just having fun with that. So it's again, still conversational, and people respond back to me with that. So let's see what's next. Again, kind of audience response. This is another thing that I'll go through as well, is maybe about a month or two ago, I just kind of stopped and said, do you guys like what I'm doing? I'm talking to you already. We have this flow. But as a whole, right, there are a few one-offs, just like Facebook or Instagram. There are going to be your select few who do talk to you regularly. But it's things like this where I'll get those new folks who come out. And they'll say, yeah, we want to see more tour-based. I actually learned that they don't like like they don't want me to say it's opening day, so I'm going to go to the Museum of Art and the Anthropology Museum and the Science Museum and I'll find baseball-related things. They want a deep dive into my museums, right? So I'll go to just the Science Museum and go through like one day and that's it. So that was the way they wanted their stories communicated, which we're going to get to as well. We're communicating, we're telling stories. It's not, I mean, it is smiley faces and rainbows, which, I mean, but there is also this element of we're communicating, which has a, beginning, middle, and end. And that's kind of how I follow based on the feedback I've been asking to receive, and people want to give that feedback. Again, that happens in a different way than Instagram, where you set it and you leave it. You're not going to have 4 or 5 posts for one topic. Right? Like this, I can go in, I've asked a few questions, I'll follow it up and do a tour in one specific museum, and then they can interact with that.
And part of that is that Instagram allows you to just like a post, and therefore you've acknowledged that you've seen it. Whereas on Snapchat, there is no ability to like something. You can view it, and that's a very passive way of like acknowledging that it exists. But in order to acknowledge that you enjoyed something or you liked something or anything like that, then you actually have to like comment back. You have to chat back. So it does bring out this like more communicative interaction between the person posting and the person viewing.
There's also, I just want to add something about, emojis and smiley faces, and a lot of, maybe your older colleagues will do a lot of head shaking and eye rolling, but it's the way a certain demographic communicates these days. So it's important to know what they mean, how to communicate in emojis. It's really, really important. Yeah. And you're reaching a certain demographic on these platforms. You need to know how they talk to each other. So it's really important. So those people that are eye-rolly about it, you should go talk to them and communicate that to them, because they need to know. And
I mean, also to go back, there's no right or wrong, right? Like I know you guys, I don't do as many of the smiley faces, but there's certainly those days, right? Like there's certainly days where I don't do a tour. I'll just go through and have fun in a museum because I want to have fun, and I know folks are going to reciprocate. So I know there's a lot of times you'll see Snapchat, it's people just going through with lyrics or kind of like hip hop mashups. That's big, and people certainly like it, and Hyperallergic will write articles. Like that's cool, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work for your institution, and that it's something that, again, learning how and when to diversify that content and say, today's going to be a heavy day because something happened or because we want to talk about this and that's what other folks are talking about and we hear that. And other times it is going to be light, and light doesn't necessarily mean bad either. It's just another way to reach audiences.
Yep.
So best practices. Do you guys want to?
Sure. So this is kind of what you were just talking about, that these stories are stories. You're creating a sequence of linked encounters with your collections or with your spaces or with your people that can tell a narrative story. They can tell a linear story if you want to set them up that way. And so, for instance, if you know that you're going to be going into a space to do a tour of a collection or of a space, then you should treat it like a movie, right? You should set it up with an establishing shot that kind of says where you are and what you're looking at. You should think about it as a narrative where you start at the beginning and you're telling a coherent story, and then you should close it off. You should end it with some kind of concluding snap that tells your viewers that you are done with whatever this chunk of content is.
Yeah.
Museums have been doing narrative for hundreds of years. It's just a new platform to do that on. So yeah, it's really important to have a good, strong narrative through your stories. And, you can do one-offs just like, throughout the day or something, but, the ones that do have a compelling narrative, a compelling story, tend to do a little bit better. Get more of a reaction.
And so I guess I would say too, like thinking, again, back to what your folks want and what works. I know a lot of times we've gotten feedback as far as if we're going to do a tour, because, again, the way just the nature of the park, there are 27 institutions, 17 museums, so I'll do a lot of stuff throughout the park and just, trees, squirrels, and kind of moving people throughout, and there's plenty of stories for that, but it's that, whether it's a wing of your own institution or you're going to go to a section of a garden, it's that setup, however formal you want to get as far as establishing shots. It can just be, all right, we're going to go check out the tour. So again, that kind of variation with what your audience feels like and what they respond to. So that can vary.
And I think there's, if you go back one more, I think there's one other key thing that because it's a platform that people pick up and put down throughout the day, somebody may see 2 snaps out of 5 in a story. And so you just have to remember that and make sure that you're not, if you want them to be telling a story, then they have to link to each other in some way, just so that people can see how they relate. It'll make them want to watch the next snap in your story. And you also want it to be something that if they only watch one, they're not going to be like, what was that? So it's like a little bit of a balancing act. You want to make sure you're providing enough information for those folks who are going to be watching only one, and you want to make it a coherent story for those folks who are going to watch the whole thing. And so the next slide that we have is actually, so this is one of my stories from when I went, so I live in New York, and I went to Dia Beacon. I have to apologize in advance because I'm a history person and not an art person. So if there are art people in this room, please do not get offended if I am flippant about any art. I had a great time. I really loved it. But just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. Great.
So this is actually.
Wait, if you go back and hit play the video.
Look at that.
Should be. There it goes. Okay, so these are, when you save out the story, it actually just auto advances through it. So you're seeing the way that it would have watched if you had watched the whole thing.
And I guess also what we're looking at here too is just, you can apply the same things as Instagram, right? You can have your details, you can have your wide shots. The same things will apply. It's a new medium in that sense, and you can have different overlays, but don't feel like you have to reinvent the way you're photographically representing your institution, assuming that that's your people are responding to that positively.
That's the reaction you want to have too. People chuckling, people laughing. It's a really good thing.
So as you can see, I just ended with a shot of the admission thing because I did go off and do other things that I was also putting on my story that day, and that way people knew that we had left Dia Beacon and we're off to other less arty things.
Fans like myself.
Is Allie here? Allie, no. Allie Klein from the Blanton, she's really good at this, and she says that if she's walking through the galleries and she laughs out loud, she knows it's a good snap. And she actually has some of her snaps have been recreated on billboards along highways in the area because
definitely follow her.
They're really so good. So. Yeah. It's a good thing. Those little chuckles, they're important because people remember that, and they get it's ephemeral, but people will remember that moment.
So this is an example I pulled from the Dallas Museum of Art. It's just a few of the slides, but they actually were telling the story of Beauty and the Beast through their collection. So again, a different way. I've done this a few times myself, partly inspired by this. I know the Blanton's done it. It's not uncommon, but was just a really fun way. I don't do it as much though, just again because the park folks like the collection, but it's not necessarily mine, so I kind of diversify beyond collection specific. So shout out to them. This is a tour that I did at the Timken Museum of Art in San Diego. So again, the slides themselves are out of order, but it was kind of starting with, they had just done a renovation that was closed for about 2 months, I think. So pink on one side and white on the other, that was kind of big because these pink walls are still in there, but this room here was a really big deal for us, so was kind of shutting that out. This lounge, so again, just kind of these different elements that were different, and it was pretty straightforward. It was just, this is what happened. It wasn't necessarily, there was a few others in there with some sunglasses emoji and kind of messing with their, the vibes they had going on, their little chase lounge over here. But yeah, so it was this kind of just different, right? It wasn't necessarily too sassy, but it was just something that was what I'm doing today.
And so sometimes we just spent a little bit of time talking about those cohesive stories, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're really just one-off things where you're just showing a glimpse of something, whether it's something that's happening in your day, whether you're taking a photo and then drawing on it, or doing a face swap thing, or anything else that's just a one-off. And one of the things you can think about is how filters can help you tell stories. So Drew is really great at using the Balboa Park Geo Filters to kind of locate himself in space. You can also use the time filter to show the passage of time. You can use, if you're a hiker, you could use the altitude one. There's all of these different ways to kind of show information in a visual way.
And also that's what people on that platform are doing anyway. So then it's the museum or institution understands that language as well. So
this is my favorite form of Snapchat. Two of mine are on either side of Drew's there, and I really like I really like using Snapchat to newsjack. So the start of November is tough. That's from last year, 1st of November. And then St. West, when that name came out, was announced, that's actually a statue of Mother Mary and baby Jesus. And, some people would be a little worried about that, but I thought it was perfect. And that's probably our most interactive with Snap of all time. It happened on the same day that all that news was coming out. So I tend to not do stories as much. I look through trends and things and see what everyone else is talking about, and then I go in the galleries and try to find something that connects with that.
So real quick, as far as concerns with St. West and baby Jesus, it worked out, right?
It worked out, yeah. And no one, I didn't get in trouble for this because no one really above me ever sees what I do on Snapchat.
That's another possible benefit, right?
There's I actually showed this. I did a Snapchat 101 for our staff at the ROM, and because we do workshops every month, and there were a few people that were like, oh, maybe you shouldn't, and and then I just explained about the platform and the people that are on it, and it just fit really, really well. So there's a couple others that are coming up that maybe.
And I asked that too, going back to the Alfred Alongo post. Everyone's response was thank you. So understanding that this is a conversation that we have within the conference circuit and things of how do we address this, and we just need to, versus being concerned, our outcome for that was fine. So again, that discussion is okay, and people want to talk about that. So varying levels, but yes.
Yeah.
So here we've got a couple that show interactions in the galleries with different pieces of art. So in the first case, that cat looks so stoked about that bird being right there. So I just wanted to use, and this is an example of using an emoji, an emoji layered with text. You can do that easily, and that helps you tell a story without having to hand draw a caption bubble. And then on the other end, that's a statue of St. Margaret. The dragon's head was missing, so I took the liberty of drawing it in, and it was during Game of Thrones time, so had to make the reference.
Face swaps. That's terrifying and amazing at the same time. Don't ever face swap with your spouse. It's really creepy.
Yeah.
But some of the statues, and you can do it. It works. It doesn't work with animals. If you have natural history collections, I've tried. But
I've tried with my cats too. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. But it takes. You really have to practice. You really have to. It's hard to get you and the other face swapper in the same view. But there was a guy that did this at the British Museum. Went around the whole museum and did it. We were actually thinking about doing a face swapping guide at the ROM because we'd see this on occasion from people. This is the essence of ephemeral content. It's weird. but it's kind of cool at the same time, and you know, it makes people laugh. It's great. Yeah.
Just seeing the next slide here. Let that sink in.
So that's mine on the left again. Right? I actually sent this to Drew privately before I put this out, and I forget what you sent back, but I was like, okay, that's good. That's gold. It's got to go out.
Talk to your friends. We're here to support each other.
Yeah. It's an accession number. Come on. So yeah, a lot of things I'll do and I won't send, and then I'll maybe contact some colleagues and say, would you do this? And sometimes they say definitely not. Sometimes they say they do, and then or they give me a couple of smiley faces and so I try it, and I think that's the thing about this stuff is it's a great space to just really experiment live. This one got a ton of views as well. Yeah, tons of reactions. So
yeah, the middle one there is just, again, it's that tour from the Timken. Nothing crazy. Honestly, it's not even my favorite example of a tour, but it's just, again, I put it in because it was something that was. That institution is a little it's a little more formal, and they renovated and they're changing things up, and so it's something that I wanted to just share because I know the folks behind the scenes, kind of share with like what they're doing and what they're updating, that people should check in with them, and so wall labels are a new thing for them, so it's just a different feature that I again was not necessarily sassy, as I always say, but it's just more of like, hey, there are new features, and I'm telling you what's going on behind the scenes, and that there are these updates throughout the park.
And I hope I'm not the only person in this room who was obsessed with Shia LaBeouf's All My Movies last fall. It's like right about the 1-year anniversary, which was when he took over a movie theater and played every one of his movies in reverse order, I think. And he sat there for 3 days and watched for 24 hours a day and live streamed a view of his face, looking very much like that. And so you got to watch him emote as he watched his own movies, and as as the movies got worse, he got like more upset. So it was really great. I was really obsessed with it, and I used it as a chance to do a doodle on a selfie.
is that a filter? Or did you draw that with your finger?
I drew that.
Oh my god.
So I was actually going to mention that too. I talked to Ryan yesterday. I am not the best drawer, so I don't do as much of that, which is, again, my own understanding of how I handle the platform that I run. So, like, obviously you want to work with what people want to see and want to engage with, but also know your own limitations, because I'm very impressed by that, and it would not look anything like that if I did it myself. So,
and there are actually, so there are superstar Snapchatters who are these people who it's their full-time job at this point. And we didn't include any of their usernames in here, but if you Google them, you'll be able to find them. And a lot of times they'll actually give you quick tutorials. So like this one gentleman who does a lot of drawings, every once in a while he'll do a tutorial about how he does that, and he'll show each step. So that helps you learn the best ways that other people are doing things like that.
So who wants to start on analytics?
The analytics are pretty lean. We talked a little bit about this before. There aren't likes, there's views, and there's like straight up responses. And
Screen captures too.
Yes,
Screen
and screen
caps are-
captures.
Yeah.
Because it notifies you when somebody has screen capped your snap. So that's kind of, it's very lean analytics, and that's true on Instagram too. And so you really just have to kind of assume that if somebody's taking the time to chat back to you, it's because they were really engaged by something.
Yeah. And also, like, I mean, if you really want to get into it, you can do a whole equation you can add up the number of screen caps and comments and all that stuff, and then divide it by how many snaps you send and all that kind of stuff. Some people do that. There are a few companies that are popping up that do Snapchat analytics that have dashboards. Del Mundo is one in New York. But for most of us, it's so ephemeral, and we're so busy, and there's not that many resources. So I just keep an idea in my head of like what worked and what didn't, and I just keep going from there.
Well, if nobody's looking at your Snapchat, nobody tells you to do analytics.
Yeah, I mean, my boss asked me about it, like how it's going, but you know, at this point, it's a secondary platform for us. It's not something that we do all the time. I don't snap personally. I just snap for the ROM occasionally. And since Instagram Stories started, I haven't snapped in a while. So, you know, like everything social, it all comes down to resources and your objectives and what you're trying to do with it. And if it doesn't meet your objectives, then, you know, there's other platforms that can handle that.
Yeah, and that actually gets to something that Drew and I have talked about a lot, which is that Snapchat is a hyper-personal platform. I would say even more so than Instagram Stories, just because Instagram itself, it has become less personal in a lot of ways. Like, it's less like a selfie of me, and it's more, here's this beautiful photo I happened to take while I was walking down the street this morning. Like, and so Snapchat, because it's so personal and because it's ephemeral, you should ask yourself if your institution, if it's a good fit for your institution. I think there are institutions that do things really well on Snapchat and Instagram Stories, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a great fit for every institution. And it just comes down to kind of having that conversation about who you want to reach and how you want to do that.
I mean, just to add to that as well before we advance, I asked our Snapchat people, like, are you guys leaving? Are you going to Instagram? Like, should I keep this? Should I not? And they all said they wanted to. And actually, a lot of folks I found out from that question they follow us on Instagram, but they're like, we follow you much more avidly on Snapchat than we do on Instagram, and we'd prefer if you stay here. At this current point, I'm fine to stay with that. And I haven't really invested as much in Instagram stories. I've done some, but I will go to Snapchat first and kind of run Instagram as I've done, you know, up until this point. So that's kind of based on what works for me, what works for us. Instagram likes Instagram, traditionally speaking, and Snapchat likes Snapchat. And they're actually two fairly different audiences. So it's, again, kind of understanding that and evaluating if you already have Snapchat at your institution, both behind the scenes and if you have that communication with your audiences. So that's kind of where we're at this point, because it is secondary for us as well.
Yeah, and you know, we actually, when we first when you guys proposed this session, it was just Snapchat, and then Instagram Stories came out. So we had like a Twitter conversation about should we add Instagram Stories, and for us at the ROM, we did a very scientific process. We did the exact same content on Snapchat and on Instagram Stories at the exact same time. And the views on our Instagram Stories was like 8 or 9 times greater than our Snapchat. So, you know, for us, that tells us right there that we needed to be doing more on Instagram Stories. And now that I'm only one person, you know, I'm pretty strapped for time, and so I'm doing more Instagram Stories than I am Snapchat. And
how many people were you before?
2. Yeah, huge team.
So just a quick look at, again, this idea of the ability to explore. This was actually the first thing on Snapchat that I did. It was the race exhibit at the Museum of Man, the Anthropology Museum in the park. And it was the first time I'd known I'd wanted to start talking, you know, addressing more social conscious posts and conversations across all of our social media as far as our strategy. But this was the first time, after having kind of learned that folks wanted more deep dives rather than trying to address race or gender or any topic throughout the park, and realizing they want a deep dive. This was the first exhibit I went through. This is just a wall in the exhibit, and I threw my text down here. And again, just being real and saying, you know, there are histories that need to be addressed beyond this exhibit, but this exhibit is here. Check it out, and understand that I may not always have the answers. Again, literally saying this, I may not have the answers, but I'm here to open this conversation and kind of follow through, which is nice in a way, because that same kind of conversation naturally will go away. Like any other conversation, we're all growing together, both myself and the audiences. But I mean, we can post on Instagram in a way that people might not respond there, but this actually has more flow because it's gonna disappear for everyone. So they see it and they respond right away, and then after that, we move on and we talk about another topic. So there is that freedom to explore in a way that safe for you as well as for the audiences, because they can respond right then. Nothing is, I guess, saved. Not that our Instagram audience ever like says anything bad in that sense, but I think it opens that conversation up where they don't have their comments stuck there forever with a picture or a question. They can ask questions here in a way that I think is a little more liberating for everyone. So.
There's an honesty to it that
Yeah.
you have to be really comfortable with, and a lot of people aren't comfortable with that because we spend a lot of time as museum professionals perfecting what we're delivering to the public, and this is not that. It's the complete opposite. It's quick, it's dirty, it's honest, you know, and that conversation back and forth is really, really important that you're just talking about.
And it's definitely, this is shaped, so again, I've kind of, like things like this, these tours are shaping kind of how I'm talking on Instagram as well, almost as like a testing ground for like, how are people receiving this conversation? Not in, as far as a bad, like I don't care if we should be talking about this, that's fine. But more of how am I addressing this? How am I talking about these things? And then bringing it to a larger audience who, you know, are on Instagram or who are on Facebook in a way that, again, that conversation is there, but when we get to the official post or those like more formal postings, I kind of know how people are responding already. So, does everyone have their phone out? And I think we can jump into this.
We have about 20 minutes left. So how many people in the room like kind of feel comfortable with what they're doing on Snapchat? Okay, so about less than half. All right, so we'll do this.
Here.
Pardon the text switch. Ooh. Do I have to press a button?
No, it should just come up.
Oh no. What do you want to do, guys? Do you guys have any questions while we do this? I don't want you guys to like just sit there and stare at me trying to fiddle with this. Yeah, just shout it out, okay? And if you can say your name and where you're from too, so that it gets on the recording, that'd be amazing.
I'm Russell from Balboa in London. So we use Snapchat. We have a lot of fun with it, but we don't have very many followers on there. So we do Instagram stories too. We have a much bigger following there, so there's much more engagement. So my question is, how have you, apart from the great content that you're producing, how have you grown your audience on Snapchat? And a follow-up is, do you know the demographics of your followers? Are we museums actually reaching the young people on Snapchat, or are we still reaching sort of 25 to 35-year-olds who are riffing off the same sort of pop culture stuff that we are into?
Okay, so for posterity, I'm going to try and repeat his question. Okay, do you
Yes.
remember?
So as far as growing audiences and kind of building up the Instagram following, or sorry, the Snapchat followers outside of Instagram.
It works. Oh, that's all. Sorry, guys.
all chin.
Yeah, you get a lot
Okay.
of surprise like selfie views on Snapchat. So be ready for that.
Can I?
Unflattering angle.
Yes, always, because you're like, oh shoot.
Okay, I can't move that out of the way. So sorry about that. But I mean, do you want to finish answering that question?
I was just to start, like a few quick things that we've done. Putting your snap code, the little ghost with the dots around it, essentially, that's a QR code, so make sure you use all of the dots, don't cut the dots off. But we use that as our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram profile. I believe it's still our profile picture on Facebook, and we've switched it out again on Instagram and Twitter. But that's a big help. People just see that there. And again, casually sharing it on other channels.
People can just scan it and follow you.
Oh, one sec. Well, I think we'll finish this one. I didn't know if you were adding, if I was missing something. Yes, sorry. Okay, adding in Jason. What's up?
So I heard that Facebook was operationally deprioritizing Facebook profile pictures that
Yeah.
Do you want to?
And
Probably.
Instagram also doesn't let you, they're very weird about you promoting other apps on their platform.
Yeah.
We found that I'm Alexis from the Frick, and we found working with them that we were getting a lot of pushback in terms of best practices on that platform by trying to promote Snapchat and build our audience there, and they were not happy.
also on certain platforms they'll take away your verification.
Right, you couldn't get a verification because of it. So.
Yeah, so I was my Twitter Canada guy. We put it up for about a week and a half, and he was like, "You got to take that down." So you can do other things like print it out and have it at missions or something like that. All people have to do is just take a picture, like scan it while they're in Snapchat. So it doesn't matter where it is. You can put it on signage. You can do a number of things. But when it first became a big thing for museums, you saw a lot of people putting it everywhere as much as possible. But geez, I'm really terrified to look at my Twitter notifications. Thanks for whoever added me. So I mean, I'm just going to show you what all the buttons are, and then if there's any cool little tricks or anything that you guys know, just shout it out because I want to learn too. This is kind of, I guess, would be like a home screen. So you have your snap code there. You can see who added you. You can add other friends. You can see your whole.
You can see your score.
Everyone, yeah. See your score. Ours is really low because we don't use it that often. And then if you just swipe up, then you get back to the screen where you create content. And you can you can just take a picture. Okay, and then yeah.
You gotta get a smile up in there.
Okay, well, I was just doing basic stuff so that we could just talk about all the buttons, but duck face. Okay, so down on the bottom, there's you see the 3 in a circle. So you can actually choose that and change how long you want the snap to be visible for. You can download save to your camera roll if you want. Sometimes you don't want to do that. And then also, if you tap here, that's how you add to your story. So the third button over from the left. And then if you want to share it, you press the blue arrow, the white arrow and the blue circle. But then the ones up on the top right, this is where you can get really creative. The first, Allie. The square is where you can get really fun. You can pinch emojis to make them bigger if you want. You can, if you want to delete an emoji, you just hold and drag it up, and it disappears. Whatever you want to do, you just play with it. If you want to add some text, you just tap on the T, and then you just type away, and then you tap the screen again, and it goes up there. If you want to make it really big, tap the T again. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. I think you just...
And another thing, if you guys have Bitmojis, there's now Bitmoji and Snapchat integration, so you get these super fun Snapchat-specific Bitmojis, and when you're chatting with somebody, it'll give you ones that have your Bitmoji and their Bitmoji. Sorry, that's one of my favorite things, so I just wanted to say it.
So this, you can also, this is how you do the drawing, so just the pencil. You can also, if you hold on the color scale there, you can change the color of what you're writing. And then there's an undo button. Okay? What else should we do? Okay, so filters, yeah. So once you take a picture, you can swipe left or right, and you'll see the geo filters. a lot of people pay for these. We don't have any money, so we don't pay for these. Someone actually created one randomly, and I don't know if it was Snapchat or who, but there's a ROM one, which is kind of nice. This one that does the the kilometers per hour from Canada.
If you
is
tap
really
it, it'll switch to Imperial.
I do this with my dinosaurs a lot because they don't move, so people love that. And then there's a whole bunch of just filters again. So you can actually do 2 filters at once. So if you want to use one that just changes the shade of the image, so you tap on it and then tap on it, hold it down, and then swipe, and you can add 2 filters at once.
Show them how to change the colors in the pen.
Okay, so you tap on the pen. Tap on the pen, and then you just hold your thumb on the color, and then just scroll down and up.
White, you swipe all the way to the left side of the screen. So hold the thing and then
Yeah.
you slide it all the way over. And if you want black, you slide it all the way to the bottom.
Yeah. You can do videos too. Want to talk about videos? Or should we do
Can Shaelyn draw a picture? Oh gosh.
live draw a picture? Okay, so if you hold, oh wait, So if you want to do the face thing, the face swap and all that stuff, while you're going to take a picture, you tap on your face and it will capture the shape of your face, and then all you do is you just move these things over. Okay, and there's there's all kinds of stuff, right? And then you gotta get and then, so let's do our tongues out.
Choose not a dog. There we go.
Okay, and then you just take a picture, and then you can share from there further. And those are kind of creepy. They get really creepy. There's some real creepy ones.
Can you buy or get more of these?
So the selfie filters change out. You don't have control over that. There's some that are there all the time. In fact, there's one that my friends call the beauty filter, which just makes you look impeccable. And they got rid of it for a little while, and the outrage was so great that it lasted like a day. And then they were like, sorry, here's your beauty filter back. But so there's some that are there all the time, like Face Swap is available all the time, and then the others change out. And the sponsored ones can be location specific, things like that. So they just kind of change automatically. You don't have control over that.
But you can't add it.
I mean, you probably can.
Okay, how much? We have 10 minutes. Real quick, Instagram stories, just real quick. You probably noticed these things at the top. That's why for us, Instagram stories are really valuable because they put your logo right in front of all your followers, and that displays on the little home screen there. So if you, I did one last night that's really crappy at the aquarium, and you can see it looks kind of the same. You can draw on it. It auto plays. It lasts for 24 hours. Anyway, the good thing about it is, see at the bottom under otters, you can see who viewed it, okay? And yeah, and then you can do various things. You can download the image to your, or delete it, or that sort of thing. This little 3 dots on the right does a few things as well. You can share your post further. There's no cumulative, so you have to go through each thing and add each number, which is kind of frustrating. At the time of this presentation, I believe the story analytics don't show up in Instagram analytics if you have something that measures Instagram analytics. And what else was I going to say about, so if you're going to create one, If you do, and this is true for stories on Instagram, if you try to create a new story within the 24-hour period that you created the first story, it'll just get added to your story. So I did this last night. So if I was going to add a new one, it would just be added to the last story. A lot of people don't know that you can scroll down from the top on Instagram stories and add images that you've taken in the last 24 hours. So that's a big thing. Yeah. So you just, we're gonna do like meta right now. Watch this. What? So yeah, you just touch your screen lightly and scroll down or pull down, and you can grab anything in the last 24 hours.
It's very important to know, though, can I add something?
Yeah.
About the format of the picture. So if you've taken a wide angle picture,
Yes.
it will not fit there.
Yes.
Or if you've taken something that even you need to crop in a little bit, just because I've done this,
Yep.
there's no scaling
Yep.
of your story. So
Yeah, we did when Missy Elliott did her released her first album in however many years. We took the chorus of one and did a thing around the museum, and I did one that was landscape and the rest were portrait, and it was horrible.
and you
Yeah,
can't change it, you can't edit anything.
yeah,
So.
yeah.
Do you recommend screen grabbing from Snapchat and resharing on Insta, or is that like?
Before there were stories, we used to do that. We used to share on Twitter all the time, and I used to actually do. Depending on how controversial the snap was, like the tramp stamp one, I would tweet that from like my personal handle, so that I would get in trouble if anyone got asked me about it. Yeah, we used to do that before Instagram stories, and it worked really well. We actually saw lots of engagement on our snaps on Twitter, and sometimes I would even tag Snapchat in the tweet, and they would retweet it if it was good. Or
In the Instagram stories, if you're thinking about what resources you have and doing a Snapchat and an Instagram story, or is that kind of frowned upon to see the type of filters show up in an Instagram story?
I don't know.
So I'm kind of a purist about this. I mean, so it's a little bit of a challenging question because Instagram stories are a straight up copy of Snapchat. So in that sense, you could do it, but if you have any overlapping audience, then they're probably not going to be super thrilled that they took the time. Because I know for me, like Instagram stories never load when I want to watch other people's. So if I took the time to load somebody's Instagram story and it was something I'd already watched on Snapchat, I would probably be pretty annoyed. So you probably would want to have some variation, like not just, even if it means you're sending half of them to Snapchat and half of them to Instagram. I mean, but I know that that's not always a reality. And so if it works for your institution and you feel like you have separate audiences, then I don't see a problem with it. And that's partly because they are exact copies of each other.
Does that help? Yeah. Sorry, I need to keep.
So I have a question. So can you give me one sort of sentence that I can say to my teenage girls, so they will go, "Oh my God, Dad, I didn't know that."
I would do like a face swap if you go visit a museum, and then just like email it to them or something. Yeah, do one with a filter or write something on it, or put an emoji on something, and then just like save it and then email it to them, and then it'll freak them out. That's enough to freak them out.
Especially if you're sending it to them via something other than Snapchat. I think it'll really blow their minds.
Why is that?
Well, just because you like broke the system. You were like, you subverted the whole thing. You were like, oh, this is just an email. JK, it's a snap.
Do we need to address memories as far as Snapchat memories?
Sure. So do you want to pull up the memories?
Yeah, do you want to?
So Snapchat used to be that when you saved snaps out, it just automatically went to your camera roll, and then they added memories. So now it stores everything within your app, and you swipe up from that front screen.
So this is if you go on the tattoos one, few weeks before or last week that we had there's our Geo Filter. This is one where we did exactly the same on Snapchat and on Instagram stories, and the views were like 8 or 9 times greater on Instagram stories.
Wait, what was that one with the circles?
That's
What's that?
So that's the view of all of the memories. So, and you can you can see it. as, so it's just basically putting each one in a circle frame so you can see where the differences are, like which one's which. And it just shows a little preview, and then when you tap in, you can actually watch them just like as if they were just like the first time you published them.
Yeah, so we did a Pokemon Go when that was a thing. Went around and found all the... It's really a fun part of my day. It gets me out of like the real, like the stuff that as social media managers that really drags on us day to day. It really, it's fun to just go and play for a little bit. So.
And then the last feature with that.
This is so embarrassing, by the way.
So.
And you get paid for that?
Yeah. Well, no, not that stuff. No.
So that you can also save your stories, and then there is also the camera roll. You can pull up the photos from your phone's camera and upload that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you upload photos from your camera roll, though, it shows them in like a white border, so you can't really be that sneaky about it. People will know that you didn't actually create it as Snap content.
Discover? No?
I don't really use it, so if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, if you have a ton of money, you can do Discover, and these are really like big publishers will do this, yeah.
Yeah,
see who's on
they're
there, right?
changing the
It's-
peach emoji. It's very sad. It's not gonna look like a butt anymore. It's a lot of Snap content going away right there.
Go back to the other one where the story is. So if you did do a story, it would show up on the top, your handle and all that. There's Children's Museum of Indy. Let's see what they're doing. Yeah.
Ah.
So you can see in the top right, there's a little counter that counts down. The outside circle is the snap itself. The inside circle is the whole
look at
story.
that.
Do you wanna show like how to screen grab that and do that kind of stuff, or?
Just as far, I mean, like,
Okay.
you're talking the screen in there.
Whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know. Just
Oh, so I guess another feature is if you wanted to finish through the story, and you're like, oh, I'm done looking at Ryan's face there, or I'm done with text, you can tap the screen and it'll advance your story, so it'll finish out.
amazing.
Yeah. So, well, kind of the same kind of thing. If you want to do, so it'll load here, you can just click on these. Penguins yesterday. Again, you can click through and just advance through the story. And if you want, so once you get to the point with, so yeah, just getting a little chatty with folks, you can do the screenshot, which is just holding your phone and the sidebar, and then to get your, oh, you know what, it's not, I'm gonna go out of here. On your story, you don't have a story right now.
No.
Oh,
no.
dang. All right, well, normally, in the feature, if you were to do that on the viewer's side, it'll have your count there. So when you're looking back at your story, that's where it'll say, how many people have seen it, has it been screenshotted, do you want to delete it, that kind of thing. So there are, that's where your analytics will be, is in your story. When you guys go back to this screen, your story will be up at the top. You click that and you'll see those elements there.
And that's also where you have the option to download the entire story as one video, like the one that we watched earlier, or you can download individual snaps. So you just have that one little video clip or photo. Yeah.
Is there an easier way to find accounts to follow on Snapchat? Like, I just tried to find Balboa Park or Children's Museum of Indy, and they don't come up. Like, if I don't know the exact name, it's so frustrating. Like, because on Twitter I can search museums and follow them all, but it's really hard to find them on Snapchat. Is there a place that has a list that I can follow them all on?
I've been trying to create a list on the Children's Museum's blog, and I'd be happy to update it more because I was frustrated myself. So
You did a blog about that, right?
Yeah.
Is there a list on the Facebook group?
Yeah, there's also a list, the American Association of Art Museum Directors.
Yes.
Art museums on Snapchat that they put together for Art Museum Day. This past May or whenever that was, and so I know it's specific to art museums, and that's frustrating, but it's a good list.
But they also
The way to find them is to like go to their website, find the code, and go back. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way to search well.
No, and so that's actually, so it's something, when you have a
Problem, for sure.
story, when you have a story, you can see that when you expand the story to see each of the snaps, like any text that you've put in is actually in the like summary line about that snap. So I'm waiting for them to make that searchable. So right now there are no hashtags on there. There's no real way to find people unless you already know them. And so it does mean that you need to know their usernames or you need to have their snap code in order to be able to follow them.
And just to clarify, you can add like the direct, like if you know it's at Balboa Park, you can insert it that way. You just have to know it's not at _Balboa Park if you don't have their code either. So again, tricky, but there are two options for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, nearby. Yeah.
You could probably also,
Everyone go to add by location
if
and
you
add
really
everyone
wanted to,
in
you
the
could
room.
probably tweet at the institution and ask them to. They'll probably, if they're on it, they'll. So that's it. I think.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you. Come hang out with us on Twitter, on Snapchat, anywhere you like. It'll be awesome. See you guys later. Have a great rest of the conference.